to Last60, Best60. I'm Lourdes, and I'm really excited that you signed up to do this. I'm so honored that you would be interested in living your best 60 days in these last 60 days of 2019, because I think that it's very intentional and very mindful to do this kind of work. I will say that it's not easy because I will have some exercises for you to do. But I will say that it's somewhat simple, and I want to make it fun and interesting, and mostly interesting because you're looking into you. And a lot of times we're looking out there and tending to other people's needs and wants and desires in business and all of that and serving. And I think that is really a lot of the kind of people that I like to work with. But at the same time, I think it's really important to nourish ourselves. And this first week is really meant to be a pause to reflect on your life, of the last year, but also on the last decade. It's really a kind of moment that we get to look at where we've been. And 10 years is in a way a long time, but it's also can seem like it just went so fast. So I really want to encourage some times and some activities that help us look at our lives. So when we do a review of the last year, I want you to feel comfortable to do this in whatever way feels good to you. So you can write it in your journal, you can just write it on a piece of paper, you could write it in a note on your phone, you can even do it with a friend. I would often encourage that because it really means something to actually have someone hear what we're reflecting on. And if that's not too comfortable with you, that's totally fine. And it could be just a very internal process, and I encourage either and maybe both. So first I encourage you to just look at the last year, from last November 1st to October 31st. Just take a look at like the things that you've done. And the way that I'm encouraging you to do this, a really easy way, because we are a phone culture now and we tend to pull out our phone and take pictures of moments that we want to remember. Look at the pictures from last November 1st to October 31st. And look at the events that you thought to take pictures of, and they may not be complete, like maybe you didn't have your phone for something. So I'll also have you look back at your calendar, but look back at the pictures and the people that you thought to really commit to some memory. And then as you're doing this, just kind of notice, like, who are you spending time with? Where did you go? Where were the epic places in the world that you went to? And also notice, like, where did you go to multiple times? So that also tells us, gives us some really good information, is where do we go to and go back again to? And also notice the emotions that go along with these travels and these pictures and these moments with people. And then as you do that, like I said, it's not always complete because we don't always have our camera, or sometimes we're like, oh, it's on someone else's camera, so they'll send it to us on a text. So we may not have those in our photo albums on our cameras, on our phones. So then I would also encourage you to go through your calendar system. So that might also be on your phone. And you might have to go day by day, or you might have color-coded like certain celebrations. At least go through every month and glance through like where you've been, what did you block off time for? Because usually what we block off time for is important. Notice what comes up either multiple times a week or multiple times a month that we either plan in or we really make an intention to make happen. And make a list of these things, these places, these people that we're returning to or that were epic in our lives, moments of transition. And transition could be a birth or a death. It could be a wedding, it could be a divorce, it could be a promotion, it could actually be either a demotion, a separation, a closure of some kind. And just take note of these. And when you're doing this, I encourage you to both be neutral as you're writing them down. instead of saying, oh, this was bad or this was good, just write it down. And then also be willing to look at the emotion that accompanied that. You don't have to get wrapped up in the emotion and feel it all again, although you might, but really to just observe what was the emotion that you had as you were going through this experience, or when you meet up with this person, or when you schedule this date with a person. Like, notice the feelings that come along with what we're putting into our schedule, where we're spending our time, where we're putting our energy. Make a list of the people that we're friends with, that we have built relationships with. And I'm just talking about the last year for now. And notice the people that we would put into the categories of love, friendship, or family. Notice the mentors that we have, people that we've learned something from. And then just also notice like the people that we consider as either a teacher, a guide, or again, like a mentor or a therapist. These are people that I would consider as our resources or wisdom figures in our life. Also take note of, and this might be a little bit harder, but I think that our devices help us to do this, but notice what conferences, books, or trainings that we've done in the last year. So for books, you might have Audible and Amazon, and just look at your orders. Like, what books and Audible books did you read or listen to in the last year? And for trainings, they might be things that you've blocked off in your calendar, or conferences. And for like programs or things that you've signed up for, because there's a lot of like web classes that people can sign up for, just notice that. And that also is a good way to just be aware of and reflect on what has been influencing our mindset in the last year. And then also take note of, and this is going to be a long list, so I'll make a page that lists all the things that I'm having you to keep track of or just notice, is what communities do you connect with? And by communities, that could be a very formal community, like it could be your church or your spiritual community. It might be your yoga class, or it might be a group that you connect with just by the notion that you have something in common, like parent groups, or maybe if you visit your family in another city, like when you're in that city, you connect with certain people. So just notice and take note of the communities that you connect with and how you would categorize them: social, or friendship, or work-related. And then another thing to notice and to take note of is, what are the practices that you're involved with and that help you to live your life? So again, that could be a yoga practice, and maybe with a yoga teacher, or a video that you do, or even like a fitness regimen that you do. Maybe you belong to a club, or you go to a class or a studio. Like, take note of the practices that you do. This could also be something that you just do on your own, like your morning ritual. What happens in the morning that helps you to feel you? So it could be like you're reading, and the time that you spend either walking and listening to a book, or maybe you spend time on your commute listening to a program or a podcast. Like, really take note of what is influencing our mind and our mindset. And essentially, it's like, what are we taking in that helps us to be ourselves? It could also be our practice of meditation. It could be our practice of going to therapy or to group meetings that really help us to feel either centered or connected or truthful with ourselves. Trainings, the books, the practices that you've explored and continued with or not continued with. So I'd like you to take note of the major purchases that you've made in the last year. And for all of us, it'll be different. So for some of us, it might be anything $200 and above. For some of us, it might be $2,000 and above. So whatever you consider to be a major purchase, I want you to take note of that. And there's a reason that I'm having you do this, because essentially, where are we putting our resources in a very big way? Like, what are we investing in? What are we putting our energy towards? Because really, if we think about money as energy rather than money as something that we have, and the stuff that we get from money is material, it's beyond that. It's really like, where are we putting our energy? What are we using our resources for that we work for? And what are we putting that towards? So you might go through your bank statements for your debit card purchases and or your PayPal and your credit card purchases. And in your mind, it might just be a good thing to just notice, like, where is your money going? But also just notice, like, what is that number that feels like a significant purchase, and what significant purchases did you make? So after you do this major list and kind of an inventory of the last year, I encourage you to choose 5 to 7 words that you would identify as your values. And the thing is, we can look back at our year and just notice, like, wow, that is what I value. So it could be a revelation to be, I really value my mental health, because I'm putting a lot of time and resources towards that. It could also be like, oh, I really value this person because I'm spending a lot of time with this teacher, this therapist, this person, friend that I really like. So it could be like a way of looking at what we do and how we've spent our time as a revelation. It could also be just a confirmation, like, oh yeah, like, my family is really important. So my time, my Friday nights, my date night with my husband, my girlfriend time, like, that is so sacred, and that friendship is a value to me. So it could be just a confirmation. And then the other thing that it could be is not just a revelation and a confirmation, but it actually puts words to what we value. Because sometimes it's really hard to be like, well, what do you value? I value life and love and all the things that everyone would say. But I also think that it's important and adds clarity when we can say, this is what I value. This is what I will put on top of any other activity or person or resource in my life. And it's affirming to us, but it's also a great way to navigate where we're headed. So as you do that for from November 2018 to October 2019, I just want you to take some time to do that. And then, and I know I said this is not easy, but it's sort of simple. I would like you to do that for the last 10 years. And so 2009, so 2009 to 2019. And again, you can look through our devices, and it's more important for this to do, you can go in as much detail as you want, and maybe you went through a lot of detail for your 2019 review, but I really encourage you at least to look at it, at least to flip through your photos on your phone, and you may have gone through multiple phones. I probably assure you that you've gone through multiple phones in 10 years. So you might have to go on your computer where the iCloud stores or whatever cloud stores all of your photos. You might have to go back through photo albums and maybe your journals to take a look at the other years beyond 2019, 2018, all the way to 2009. But I really encourage you to do this because we're really ending a decade. And I really encourage us to look at, like, where have we been? So again, make a list of the places in the world, the people that you've spent time with in the last 10 years. And to use that, not to be like, oh, that was wrong, or oh, that was so good, I'm so glad. Both. I want you to just take a very objective look at the last 10 years, and it could jog memories and emotions, and that's great. But I want you to look at it just as a whole, and then also use that for next week, because we'll really be looking at, again, like, what do we value and where are we headed? So it's not a going from wrong to right. I actually call this whole review, and I do this weekly and I do this monthly and quarterly, not as intense or in depth, but I do like to course correct and just take a look at, is this really where I want to be spending my time, my money, my resources? And as we do that, it's really important to know, what did we actually spend our time, our money, our resources, our emotions, our kind of daily, weekly, monthly practices to be who we are now. The reason why I think it's so important to look at that is because we can think that we value our friends or our partners, but if we're not actually spending time and resources, maybe money, to actually do that, we might be deluding ourselves. We might be mistaking that we want our values to be this, but our actions are not supporting that. So in a way, this clarity that I'm striving for and encouraging for all of us is really being accurate. Are we spending our time, our money, our resources, our emotional energy, our mental energy to be and aim and go towards these values that we really identify for ourselves? So again, it's not easy, because when we look at that and we're not accurate, it might be a revelation. But I assure you that going forward, you will be able to more accurately look at, how are you spending your next week, and does it reflect your values? So this first week is a lot of time, and it could be really great. I encourage you to spend maybe an hour in the morning or in the evening, and again, maybe alone, maybe with a friend, maybe with a partner doing this, and to really look at your last year first, and just take some time with the last year, because that's pretty doable. And then this 10-year looking back, I also encourage you to do maybe towards the weekend, maybe when you have a couple of hours. I don't think it has to take a lot of time. It might take a lot of time, so I just want you to have a whole week to really reflect and pause. And it's a really great week to do this. We got an extra hour yesterday, so we'll have a little bit more daylight this week, and I just encourage you to notice that and to use that for this time to reflect. We're headed into a busy time, and it's the Thanksgiving holiday. Some of us travel, and then there's the holiday time towards the end of December, and this reflective time might be what helps you to really set intentions for the next 60 days to be your best 60 days. And even if you just did this exercise, I hope that it really allows the next 60 days to be intentional and purposeful and your best, because you're connecting to you. Thanks. And any feedback I welcome, either by email or commenting on social media. And if there's anything that you want to post, like a fun day that you remember from earlier this year or from November, December of last year, I encourage you to hashtag Last60, Best60, so that we can all be kind of connected in this way and share some insights with each other.